Here's where we are in the governance series. We completed phase 1, seeing the system, letters 1 to 12. We are in phase 2, designing the system, letters 13 to 30. We completed stage 1 through stage 4. We are now in stage 5, preventing regression, letters 24 to 26. We just completed letter 26C, what leaves when they do. We are in letter 26D, the end of governance by vigilance. In letter 13A, we stated in stage 5 that preventing regression comes after the core design is functioning, because you cannot build drift control before you have a design system to drift from. When regression mechanisms are in place, the organization stops depending on individual vigilance to hold what was designed. The system holds because it was built to hold, not because someone is watching. We are describing something more profound than regression. We are describing a transfer of responsibility. Before stage 5, the executive believes the executives are holding the organization together. After stage 5, the executive realizes the design holds the organization together. That transfer of responsibility is an enormous philosophical shift. Look at every workshop again. In letter 25B, the hospital scenario, with the structural pattern of silent drift. The lesson was not leadership needs to notice more closely. The lesson was design the organization so patient reality continuously becomes visible. Leadership should not have to personally discover it. In letter 25C, the construction company scenario, with the structural pattern of strategic drift. The lesson was not executives should ask more questions. The lesson was design the organization so critical dependencies reveal themselves before they become catastrophic. In letter 25D, where information is on a need-to-know basis, in the data center scenario, with the structural pattern of decision amnesia. The lesson was not document decisions. The lesson was design the organization so decision reasoning survives the people who made the decisions. In letter 26A, the scenario where the airline was not able to even be reactive, with the structural pattern of informal workarounds. The lesson was not stop using workarounds. The lesson was design the organization so people do not need them. In letter 26B, in the ransomware scenario, with the structural pattern of policy accumulation, the lesson was not write fewer policies. The lesson was design the organization so behavior remains coherent without continually adding more rules. In letter 26C, in the VP of Sales and Salesforce scenario, with the structural pattern of dependency fragility, the lesson was not cross-train. The lesson was design the organization so capability belongs to the institution rather than to an individual. Notice something. Every workshop moves responsibility away from individual behavior toward organizational design. That is the altitude to which we have been referring. At the beginning of stage 5, the executive believes better organizations require better people. By the end of stage 5, the executive recognizes better organizations require better design. Not because people no longer matter, but because people cannot permanently compensate for weak design and attrition cannot be avoided. That is a profound change in perspective. That, once again, is altitude. I think there is an even deeper realization. Governance strengthens the organization. Until now, that sounds like philosophy. Stage 5 finally demonstrates how. Governance does not strengthen the organization by asking people to work harder. It strengthens the organization by transferring capability from people into the organization itself. That sentence is a key concept in the entire series. Read it again. Governance strengthens the organization by transferring capability from the people into the organization itself. Let's look at how this concept applies to every workshop. Letter 25B, the hospital. The capability to recognize patient experience becomes institutional when the organization builds a continuity mechanism that keeps patient reality visible on its own rather than relying on any one executive to notice it. Letter 25C, the construction company. The capability to recognize infrastructure dependencies become institutional when execution is deliberately kept coherent with strategy, so critical dependencies surface through the structure itself rather than through an executive's memory or instinct. Letter 25D, the data center need-to-know basis. The capability to preserve decision reasoning becomes institutional when decision authority is documented at the moment a decision is made, so the reasoning survives regardless of who made it or who stays. Letter 26A, the airline. The capability to adapt operationally becomes institutional when the organization designs real authority into its processes, so people no longer need an informal workaround to get things done. Letter 26B, ransomware. The capability to guide behavior becomes institutional when policy is designed with intention rather than accumulated one incident at a time, so behavior stays coherent without needing another rule added. Letter 26C, Salesforce. The capability to maintain customer relationships becomes institutional when capability is deliberately distributed across the institution, so the relationship belongs to the organization rather than to whichever person happens to hold it. Those are all examples of the same transformation. Each workshop institutionalizes a different capability. That means stage 5 is not fundamentally about 6 structural patterns. It is about 6 capabilities that every resilient organization must institutionalize. That is a subtle but profound distinction. The structural patterns reveal where those capabilities are missing. The design resolution institutionalizes those capabilities. This raises the concept of stewardship to a higher level altitude. Up until now, stewardship has almost sounded like watch over the organization. Stewardship becomes continuously transferring organizational capability away from individual dependence and into institutional design. That is much richer. Before stage 5, some may have thought higher altitude meant seeing more. With what we have been describing in this letter, higher altitude is not seeing more. It is seeing differently. From the ground level, you see policies, meetings, technology, incidents, projects, departments. From this higher altitude, you no longer organize your thinking around those things. You organize your thinking around one question: where does the capability live? Does it live in one person, in one department, in undocumented history, in habit, in heroic effort, in accumulative policies, or has it become part of the organization itself? If it has not, then, regardless of how successful the organization appears today, it remains structurally vulnerable. That is the new possibility letter 26C speaks about as it transitions us to stage 6. Recognizing structural patterns is not the ultimate outcome for the executive. The executive navigation chart was designed to do much more than help you recognize structural patterns. It was designed to change the way you evaluate an organization, not by asking, what are people doing? Not even by asking which structural pattern is present, but by asking, has this capability become institutional, or does it still depend on one individual? That question could not have been asked at the beginning of stage 5 because the executive did not yet have the perspective to answer it. By the end of stage 5, after moving through each workshop, it becomes a natural question. And I believe it is the bridge to stage 6, where governance is redefined not as oversight, but as the discipline of designing organizations that retain their capability independent of individual vigilance. Thank you.